things change over the seasons of our lives. So temptations change, as well as the ways that we need to serve, or the ways that we need to serve. So first we're going to look at some examples of some older women in the Bible, women who were in their winter of their lives, and how they served and how they worked through doing things in the later years of their lives. First, we're going to talk about Sarah. All right, we all know the story of Sarah, right? Let's go to Genesis 18. Oops. Genesis 18. And I'm going to read a few verses. And then chapter 20. All right. The Lord said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son. And Sarah was listening at the tent door. The Lord was talking to Abraham, of course. Sarah was listening at the tent door behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in years. The way of women had ceased to be with Sarah. I always think that phrase is really funny. The way of women have ceased to be with Sarah. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, after I'm worn out, and my Lord is old, shall I have pleasure? The Lord said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh and say, shall I indeed bear a child now that I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time, I will return to you about this time next year, and Sarah shall have a son. But Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. He said, no, but you did laugh. And then in chapter 21, the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did to Sarah as he had promised. And Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the time of which God had spoken to him. And in verse 5, Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. And Sarah said, God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh over me. And she said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age. So she became a mother around the age of 91. And we can see that later she died at the age of 127 when Isaac was about 36 or 37. So the average woman in America lives to be about 80. So subtract that by 30, 50. It's pretty difficult to have a kid at 50. I don't know. I've never been there, but I can only imagine. Being at that age in your life and thinking, all right, time to, move on. And suddenly you have a little baby that you have to care for. I can imagine that would be very difficult. She thought that her opportunity for having a baby had passed. She laughed at the prospect. Sarah's life changed its course quickly. She wasn't expecting to be a mother. She wasn't expecting to care for a baby in her old age, but God expected that of her. God made an unexpected change for her. While she laughed at the prospect of having a child, since she thought it was impossible or something that wasn't going to happen, she still, it seems, took her job and did it. She didn't find someone else to care for her child who was younger, more energetic, more spry. It seems that she was proud that she finally had a child. Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age. So she took that job, even though she was too old for it, or she wasn't able to. She still did it. She didn't find someone who was younger, healthier, more energetic, better suited to mother her child. So how does this relate to us? Has something unexpected happened in your life? I know a lot of people now, especially my mom's age and older, are caring for their older parents, caring for their parents who probably aren't in the best of health anymore. We don't typically expect that, at least, I hope not to do that. It's not something that we, would look forward to, I guess. At least not the generation above me didn't expect to do that. Or things like maybe caring for children. If you're a grandparent and you're caring for your grandchildren when you didn't expect to be. Caring for your spouse when they're having health issues. These are unexpected things that we didn't plan to have in our life. But we wouldn't leave our family members or grandchildren or children in vulnerable positions to care for themselves, right? We would take up that work because we love them. We don't want to find someone that may be more capable or has more time or seems maybe they can do it better, you know. Sometimes we may put people in assisted living, you know, if we can do that. But we want to make sure they have the best accommodations, right? Sarah didn't do that. She didn't find someone better, more capable. She did what she had to do. And we should do that as well. Maybe along the same vein, do we have anything in the church unexpectedly fall into your lap that you don't want to care for? Is there no one else to teach a Bible class, so you are the one that has to do it? No one else signed up to prepare communion, so you're going to do it even though you don't like to do it. Are these things that we don't want to do where we think, you know, someone else could do this job a whole lot better than me? Someone could, you know, if you have to lead singing, or maybe take a meal to someone and you just, you know, order Domino's, I guess. You know, someone could cook a meal that some would argue would be better than Domino's, but do with what you have. We don't just say, you know, all I'm going to do is call Domino's. Can't someone else just make them a lasagna or something? We do with what we have. Sarah embraced the unexpected work, and she did it. Is there anything that we are ever actually too old to do? I couldn't think of anything. I tried hard. Besides physical limitations, maybe things like that. You may not be able to get around as well as you could. Your mind may not be as sharp as things like that. But there's nothing I can think of that specifically you're too old to do that. So keep that in mind. You're never too old to do something. All right, next we'll talk about Elizabeth. She was humble. I'm going to read from Luke chapter 1. Chapter 1. I'm going to read those verses. It's a lot of different verses. In the days of Herod, king of Judea, there was a priest named Zechariah of the division of Abijah. And he had a wife from the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. And they were both righteous before God, walking blamelessly in all the commandments and statutes of the Lord. But they had no child, because Elizabeth was barren, and both were advanced in years. And there appeared to him an angel of the Lord, standing on the right side of the altar of incense. And Zechariah was troubled when he saw him, and fear fell upon him. But the angel said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zechariah, for your prayer has been heard, and your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you shall call his name John." And then in verse 24, after these days his wife Elizabeth conceived, and for 5 months she kept herself hidden, saying, "Thus the Lord has done for me in the days when he looked onto me, to take away my reproach among people." In those days, verse 39, Mary arose and went with haste into the hill country, to a town in Judah, and she entered the house of Zechariah and greeted Elizabeth. And when Elizabeth heard the greeting of Mary, the baby leaped in her womb. And Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit, and she exclaimed with a loud cry, "Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb. And why is this granted to me, that the mother of my Lord should come to me? For behold, when the sound of your greeting came to my ears, the baby in the womb leaped for joy. And blessed is she who believed that there would be a fulfillment of what was spoken to her from the Lord." Again, like Sarah, God allowed Elizabeth to bear a child in her own age. Unlike Sarah, she didn't laugh at God's plan. She seemed to be humble and reverent and honored to do this. Now, when I read this passage, I think I might have been jealous, of, if I were Elizabeth, I might have been jealous of Mary. You know, Mary gets to bear the Lord, the Messiah. You know, she's the one that God chose to bear Jesus, and I get to bear he's important too. John the Baptizer. Of course, Zechariah knows that he's going to be important as well. But come on, like who would, I might have been jealous of Mary. But it doesn't seem like she was doing this, She was going through the trouble of giving birth in her old age, and yet she seems to still be honored by this. She said, "And why is this granted to me, that the mother of my Lord should come to me?" So she seems to be honored. She wasn't jealous that Mary was going to have God's son. I don't think she felt like she had a lesser task or a less important job than Mary, because God chose her to do this special work. All right, did she scoff at having perhaps a lesser important job or not the same thing as Mary? Do we have issues when we think we're too good to do something in the church? When there are works, when there are services that need to be done, like, cleaning the bathroom, changing a dirty diaper. Who wants to do that? But would that be a service still? What things do you not enjoy doing but still need to do to serve? Again, I think there are a lot of people who like to teach Bible class. And I say, so what Bible class? Jonathan will ask, what Bible class would you like to teach? What age? And usually the answer is, I want the older kids. Because they don't have to worry about not reading, I guess, but more diapers or crying or potty training. It's awful, let me tell you firsthand. I don't want to deal with it either, but I have to deal with it. Things like that. You don't want to clean the bathroom, but if that's what you have to do to serve the church, maybe you should clean a bathroom. You're never too good to do that. Do we scoff at these opportunities to serve? Or do we take honor in serving, no matter how difficult or unglamorous it may be? I've been pregnant. It wasn't fun for me. I can only imagine being older and being pregnant, and that would probably be very less fun. So it wasn't easy to have a baby in her old age, and yet she did it. She did it, and she gave honor to God for giving her the opportunity. Next, we're going to talk about Lois. In 2 Timothy 1, verse 5, 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 5. I am reminded of your sincere faith, a faith that dwelt first in your grandmother Lois and in your mother Eunice, and now I'm sure dwells in you as well. So Paul is talking to Timothy, encouraging him and saying, I'm reminded of your faith, which came from your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice. We know Timothy was a great man. We have proof of that in the Bible, and Paul taught him a lot. But this is the only verse that mentions Lois. We don't really know anything specific about her except that she was Timothy's grandmother and she was faithful. We know that she must have shown her faith to them and been a great example, since they also followed in her footsteps as well. What do we... What would happen if people imitated our faith? Even if we didn't necessarily do anything special, we didn't do anything that caused people to know about us, to know how great we are we still a good example? Even if you don't think anyone's looking at you or you don't think anyone is following you, are we still a good example to others? What would happen to the church if others imitated your faith? Lois could have been a great pillar in the early church. She could have brought hundreds of people to Christ, but we don't know that. The Bible doesn't say that. Do you still serve God even when no one else is going to know about it? Even if someone just mentions your name once from the pulpit and says, thank you for doing this. Is that all? Do you need that? Do you need someone to say that? Would you still serve even if no one knew? All right, last we're going to talk about Anna. So in Luke chapter 2, chapter 2, verses 36 through 38. And there was a prophetess Anna, the daughter of Phanuel, of the tribe of Asher. She was advanced in years, having lived with her husband 7 years from when she was a virgin, and then as a widow until she was 84. She did not depart from the temple, worshiping with fasting and prayer night and day. And coming up at that very hour, she began to give thanks to God and speak of him to all who were waiting for the redemption of Jerusalem. So this was talking after Jesus was born and they visited the temple with baby Jesus. Anna has always been my favorite woman in the Bible. Like Lois, not much is said about her, but what is said about her is profound. She was a widow for at least 77 years, if my math is right. I'm not good at math. So she's a widow for most of her life, but she dedicated her life to worshiping God. She was always there. She was always there worshiping, fasting, praying, talking to people. She met Jesus and spoke of him to all who would listen. She spread the news. She was dedicated. She never left. She lived there. She spent her life doing this. Instead of grieving over her husband or finding a new husband, she decided to spend her life worshiping God. So do you speak of him to everyone that you know? Are you dedicated? Are you always here? By that I mean, are you dedicated to the church as the people and to worship services? Are you on time? Do you smile and greet others kindly? Are you dedicated to the work? Do you offer to help? Or do you show up late, forget your Bible, play on your phone during worship, and just wait till it's over so you can leave? Are you dedicated to serving? Anna was there. She was in the temple, but she wasn't just in the temple. She also worshiped there. She worked there. She worked hard. Showing up is only half the battle. You could be worse places than worship on Sunday morning. But just because you show up to worship on Sunday morning does not mean you're worshiping in spirit and in truth while you are here. Do we speak well? Anna spoke well of Jesus and what was going to happen. Do we speak well of the church to everyone we know? Or do we complain to our friends that the preacher preached for too long, or someone offended you? Do we complain about other members of the church to people of the world? Do we skip services because we had a rough day at work or we're too tired? Do you dread walking through the doors because we have a lot of stuff to get done, or I don't really feel in the mood to talk to people today? Anna put God first, and she was dedicated to his service. She was always there, worshiping, praying, and fasting, and it seems that she was very happy about that. She was happy to be there. She chose to do that. So do you put God first like Anna? Do you serve him with happiness? Do you serve him at every opportunity that you can? All right, that was short. We're not done. All right. So how can you serve in the season of life? We've seen these examples of women in their older years. Now, how can you serve? How can you improve your faith? I gave out a handout of ways to serve, and I really just typed this up last night really quick. So there's probably lots of typos. There may be some repeating things, but these are just ideas. We're not going to go over all of them, but take a look at them sometime and find something that you can do, no matter how big or small you think it may be. Being busy is not an excuse. Being tired is not an excuse to serve. It's not if I can serve, it's how can I serve. All right, and as I said earlier, different seasons of life bring different things. One of the things I've noticed is that as time passes, and there are more generational changes, people growing up, people getting older, it's hard for us to relate to the other generations that we are not in. So here's some tips for relating to the different seasons and how to serve them. I think this is a very important thing. It just seems like a lot of times we tend to gravitate in our congregation to the people that we are the same age as, the people who we can relate to, when we have to keep in mind that the church is one body, and we are all in there. We're all unified. It's important to, like in the verse in Titus earlier, for the older women to teach the younger all of the things that they know. So here are some things to bridge the gap between some of the seasons. First, ask what is needed. I know especially in older generations, from what I've seen, it's kind of crass or rude to ask, what do you need? What can I give you? Especially, I feel like when I had my baby shower, people wanted to buy what they knew was going to be a really good thing for the baby, which I really appreciate. I got a lot of good advice, a lot of good help, and a lot of things that I could use. Fortunately and unfortunately, I got about 12 hand-crocheted pink blankets for my baby shower. I mean, I love it. I saved 3 of them. I have 3 of them from when I was a baby that were hand-crocheted by older women that I just love. Unfortunately, I don't need 12 pink hand-crocheted blankets. So I donated them to a NICU to use them there. Like I said, I really appreciate that. It's a craft that I feel like is dying out and that we should really learn as the younger generation and continue on. But asking may be better. I don't want someone to spend too much of their time and effort working to make something and maybe hurting their arthritis or their hands or something like that when they could, help me in a different way. Because I know they have lots of other things, knowledge, some know-how, they know how to cook, things like that could also be useful. So asking what is needed. You never know someone's situation, and you never know if something is going to be offensive or unhelpful. I'm thinking I would love for a lot of older ladies to make meals for people, but there are lots of, unfortunately, allergies and things like that. So asking ahead of time. And the same thing for all generations. We never know what someone needs or wants. So asking how you can serve someone specifically. Next is pray. We can all pray for the people you want to help. Pray for wisdom and guidance on how to serve. Pray for understanding. Pray for opportunities to come to you to serve. We may not know what to do. We may not be able to do something, but we can always pray about it. Another thing you can do to serve when you may not be able physically is to listen. Just a listening ear. I see a lot of people who don't have someone to talk to often, and they just want someone to listen to them. Maybe tell you about their day, tell you about their kids, tell you about their grandkids. They may be lonely, and so just listening hard, hearing what they say and replying, not just nodding your head and saying, uh-huh, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Having constructive things to say. We may be afraid of criticism if you say too much about your children or your house, or, we want to be perfect people. But just having someone listen and accept what you're saying is very helpful. So giving encouragement, kindness, building a relationship by listening. That's another good way to serve, even if you think you may not be able to. Offer to help in a way that you can. Know your talents. There are some people here who are excellent cooks. Some people here who are excellent at crocheting or sewing or knitting. There are people who are really good with kids. There are people who are really good at doing lots of things, having a Bible study. Know your talents and know what you can offer. And find someone who you can bless with that. Accept that the answer may be no thank you or not right now. But know that all you can do is try and offer. Being a good example. Like Anna, she served in the church and people saw that. She worshiped a lot. And know that you can teach others just by being a good example. There are a lot of good Christian women who I look up today who probably don't even know it. I tell you that even if no one tells you they look up to you, they may still look up to you. Like, I'm going to give some examples, and I'm really sorry I'm calling you out. Laura, McMillan back there, I love the way, I've seen the way that she's raised her children. And I've always admired the way that her children turned out beautifully. I mean, they're great, they're awesome. They're great Christian kids, they're respectful. You know, and I've always looked up to her as more of like my parenting person that I want to be like when I grow up. And then Beth is an amazing Bible class teacher. The things that she's taught my daughter is just amazing. And so I look up to her for that. And they didn't specifically do anything. They didn't, you know, come up to me and say, here, let me teach you how to be a good mom. Or let me show you how to teach a Bible class. But I saw their examples, and I saw the work that they put in, and it influenced me a lot. So even though you may not specifically be serving, or telling someone, or giving advice, teaching someone, you can still influence and teach them by being a good example. Someone may look up to you just because you're always at the door smiling when they walk in. And they think, how is this person always so happy? They may look up to you because you make a really good lasagna and it's delicious. You never know when someone is admiring you for something that you can do. So keep that in mind, especially with your demeanor, the way you treat others. Being kind can also be a way to serve others. So overall, be kind. We're all in this together. Even though we're from different seasons, from different generations, different ways of life, we're different. But we're on the road to the same place. We're just at different mile markers in our lives. So looking forward to helping others, even if they may not be in your season, your generation, or your, share your hobbies or things like that. You're still here to help each other. Finally, you never truly know when you're in the winter of your lives. I'm going to read from James. Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go into such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and make a profit. Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. We all hope we have many more years to live, to see our families grow, to bring others to Christ, but we never know when we're going to end, or when our lives are going to end. Unfortunately, we can't predict that. So we don't know if we're going to live for another 4 years or 40 years or not live until see tomorrow. So keep that in mind. You never know, well, later maybe I'll work on this sin. Or maybe later I'll work harder to serve others. I'm just too busy in my life right now. You never know when the time is going to come, when it's going to be over. So treat each day like it's your last, and remember to serve Him no matter what season you're in.